Well, here we are in the middle of March, and in another week or so, it's going to be spring. Of course, in Florida, it's late winter and spring, pretty much the same weather. But even so, over the winter, it was a tougher time to graft mango. I had, some takes, but I did have more fails than normal. So I switched out of grafting mangoes and started grafting some other types of tropical fruit. For instance, this first one is canistel. I like canistel a lot. I haven't met a canistel that I haven't liked, but I like aurea particularly well. So I grafted mostly aurea, but of course it did a little bit of trompo too. And I just love this stage of it. The new leaves look gorgeous. I've been grafting a few avocados. This one happens to be Russell, and that's because, well, I like Russell a lot. So I tend to graft things that I like more than the other varieties, but there are a lot of good varieties of avocado. Grafted some sapodilla. This one happens to be a llano. That's a very popular variety because the tree sort of branches a lot, so it's more compact. Some people call it dwarf, but if it gets old enough, you don't think it's too dwarf. But if in the case of one of our llano trees, that tree is very small, even though it's old, and so it does depend on the circumstance and also how much you trim it. So I do try to trim that back and keep it small, that second one. But when I was grafting, I normally do this. I graft one variety per tree, but I did a couple of sapodilla with like all sorts of varieties on them. So hopefully those turn out. It's the first time I did a crazy amount of varieties on the same rootstock. And then of course I grafted some annonas. So there definitely are other types of fruit that actually prefer to be grafted this time of year. So if you are sort of a graftaholic like I am, just sort of plan for that. Try to grow out seedlings to graft onto in the winter of the types of fruit that you like that happen not to be mangoes. But the good news is right now is a really good time to start grafting mangoes again. So let's go take a look at a few trees. So fortunately, a lot of our trees have a lot of fruit set. This is Coggshall, and it happens to have just about every panicle has fruit on it. I have to look a long time before I see like one that doesn't. But we're in the fruit business, so that's wonderful news. Since I'm also wanting to graft some trees, this is not an ideal candidate to harvest scions from. It is busy producing fruit, and that's a good thing. But right next door here is our ice cream mango tree. And while we do have pretty good fruit set in certain areas, it's not nearly like the star performers. This particular branch has lots of empty panicles here. I am only seeing one out of, there's more than a dozen panicles here that has a fruit, and that one actually looks like it's going to fall off. It looks a little bit yellow. So sad news for ice cream fruit, at least in this area of the tree, hoping the rest of the tree comes through for us. But this is an opportunity to get some scions of ice cream. So basically, what I do is just, cut off the leaves, and so that sort of encourages the plant to form buds where the leaves were. Same thing happens like during a hurricane and such, where you will see all the leaves blown off of young branches, and sometimes the older branches too. And then after a couple weeks, you'll see buds forming everywhere. So we're pretty much just mimicking that. But this, this should be pretty good for grafting. Unfortunately, some of the ice cream scions are just too skinny, but we should be able to get a few scions out of this bunch. I know there are a lot of people who are eager to get scions to start grafting, and it's going to be sort of sporadic this time of year because there's just a few situations on some of the trees where we might be able to prep some scions, but most of the energy of the trees is going into fruit production. So hopefully in a few weeks we'll be able to offer some scions, but the best time for scions seems to be after the fruit is already picked from the trees. So, it's good news for grafting, but not for people who want to graft a ton of things this time of year.